So, I've spent the past few weeks using the Vive Pro 2 as much as possible. Typical gaming, productivity, leisure, and I'm sorry, HTC, but this is probably the most confused VR headset on the market. There's so much good here, but there's also so much that falls short of expectations that I'm kind of confused as to why this even exists in its current state. And we're gonna talk about all of that in every detail, good, bad, and downright ugly, and hopefully get a better understanding of not just what the Vive Pro 2 is, but why. And there is a demographic that the Pro 2 fits. In fact, in some ways, the Vive Pro 2 is actually pretty darn good. It's just that this headset has so much more potential that is missed than hit. So let's just do it. I'm going to break down this review into multiple sections, starting with an overview and design, then comfort and visuals, including optics, FOV, and clarity, audio from headphone to microphone with comparisons, and the issues I've run into. And we'll finish with my conclusions, including the use cases that I think the Pro 2 is perfect for and what it's not perfect for. Let's start with the overview. Now, I'm not gonna lie, on paper, the Pro 2 sort of is a winner for VR enthusiasts. A really impressive resolution of 2448 by 2448 per eye, smashing the previous kings of enthusiast VR. The Pro 2 also has a 120-degree field of view, or so it says, a wireless adapter support, something that we've been begging for the Index, built-in headphone audio, base station tracking. On paper, this thing sells itself. But in application, every benefit of this headset is marked by caveats and asterisks that can't be ignored. Let's start from the top. The Pro 2 uses the exact shell of the original Pro. Not much has changed here besides the color of the plastic, and you know what? I was kind of okay with that. The Pro and Pro I are both comfortable headsets, and it makes sense from a business standpoint. Factories already have the tooling and molds necessary to make the Pro 2 because shell-wise, it's the exact same as their previous headsets. It's a proven design, and if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. And this is where, in my opinion, HTC made the first mistake. This design is perfectly fine for the HTC Vive Pro and its hardware. In a lot of ways, it's simply not adequate for the Pro 2. The lens design is different than its predecessor, and oh, don't worry, we'll talk about the lenses and the stereo overlap issues. The displays are different and generate far more heat, making the Pro 2's cooling solution somewhat inadequate. The weight distribution is different, and the needs of consumers and businesses are different than 3 years ago. Yes, the shell is a proven and recognizable design, but when you gut a headset and replace its internals with new hardware, there should be new considerations. And look, I'll get into the positives soon. My goal here is not to bash HTC. Believe me, I feel like we need them in this space, but I have to be honest here if I want anything better from them. But let's move on. This headset has unfortunately the same microphone as every other Vive headset, but there are very welcomed upgraded audio drivers within the headphones, good solid IPD adjustment through a wheel, eye relief sliders, and it also carries a 120 Hz refresh rate. Let's talk comfort first before we get into the nitty-gritty of the specs. The Pro line has always been pretty comfortable. There's a solid feeling dial on the back for tightness and a strap on top. After one time of adjustment, it's very easy to understand how to do it even for the newest of VR users. This shell, like I've said before, generally disperses the weight nicely across your head, and the head strap supports the headset nicely. Nothing has changed here besides the weight of the front of the headset. The new displays and lenses and hardware are heavier, and this leads to the Vive Pro 2 not being as comfortable as the Pro, at least in my opinion. The differences are slight at only 50 grams, but I assume if you're investing in an $800 HMD that's tethered to a PC, you're probably spending hours in VR, not minutes. And after hours, the Pro 2 noticeably puts pressure on my forehead and back of the head more than I expected. This is something I can just get used to or possibly even account for with the counterweight on the back of the headset, but it's the first evidence that this shell and head strap just wasn't purpose-built for this hardware. The stock facial interface is a very typical HTC Vive design. It's a dense foam with, unfortunately, only Velcro holding it together. I would have hoped that on a premium headset we would have magnetic interfaces like on the Index, but maybe that's a nitpick. What's weird and not excusable though is the thickness of this stock interface. Remember that 120-degree field of view? Well, that's practically physically impossible with this foam and my face shape. Now, the foam is great for users that use glasses in VR, but for everyone else, you get a thick foam pad that doesn't allow you to use the device to its fullest extent, and I have to rip the VR cover off my index to even get close to 120 degrees. Now, I don't find this foam uncomfortable, some people really do, but it does the job. Just don't sweat in it because it's a sponge. And it really bothers me that with all of these impressive specs, a different facial interface wasn't designed to make use of this new hardware. I have to use something from an entirely different headset from a third party just to make use of it. And that perfectly brings me on to visuals. Lenses, clarity, FOV, contrast. I personally love my Index and the Pimax 5K Super because they both deliver higher than standard field of view. The more VR I can see, the happier I am. The 120 degree estimate from HTC for the Pro 2 was something I was really excited about, and once I did swap out the stock foam for super slim index foam pads from VR cover, I was finally able to actually see the wider FOV. Basically, the closer your eyes get to the lenses and display, the better. In addition, there is an eye relief slider that allows you to do just that to a certain extent and increase that FOV, and mine is always maxed out. And I want to clarify, everyone's eyes are different, and my FOV readings will also be different than yours, but here are my results with the Pro 2 stock and then with the slim cover, and here's them compared to the Index and compared to the Quest 2. One thing you'll notice right away, especially compared to other headsets, is the disproportionately small vertical FOV to horizontal FOV. This makes looking through the Pro 2's lenses feel like they have an ultra-wide feel, and looking up or down, you clearly see black bars, and it's quite immersion breaking. Although I did get used to it relatively quickly, it's just not how I want to see VR. That vertical FOV is very important. But these lenses, I like them a lot. They use a very similar technology to the Valve Index, pretty much two lenses stacked right on top of each other. This improves the clarity, widens the sweet spot where everything looks the clearest, and allows for those wider FOVs with less distortion. It's a clear win besides the obnoxious choice to include this foam pad that restricts FOV, and not allowing the eye relief slider to bring the lenses any closer to the eyes. The displays are very solid. They're high resolution, a leap above even the HP Reverb G2, and nearly twice the resolution of the Valve Index. But they are LCD. Don't expect true black or extremely vibrant colors. Screen door effect is practically a non-issue at this point on this headset. The display is very clear, and if anything will break your immersion, it's the comfort or oddly ratioed FOV, not the resolution of the panels or screen door effect. And in case you don't know what that is, it's the cross-hatching you get on some lower resolution displays in VR. And one negative, these displays also run really hot, but I'll touch on that part later. Another odd thing is this headset has a weird parallax issue. Looking at these stats, the stereo overlap, or how much the images overlap between the lenses, is very far compared to most headsets, leading to the human eye seeing objects a little differently than you'd expect, and everything having a very slight ghosting feel that kind of makes the resolution increase feel like it's not as big as it actually is. Also, another hint that these lenses and these displays just don't quite fit as well with the old shell design as they could have with a total redesign. But let's talk about audio. The king of VR audio is Valve with the Index and Reverb G2 that share the exact same audio drivers. I've never minded the Pros or Deluxe Audio Straps audio, it's just not near the level of the Index. It works, it sounds alright, and while I'm no audiophile, to my ears the mids are lacking, making you lose a lot of detail in the audio, and the bass is higher, giving you a sort of false interpretation of good sound quality. The microphone though, give me a second to rant. How hard is it to put a good microphone in an $800 headset? The Valve Index has an incredible mic. The Quest 2 is certainly usable, but HTC just doesn't understand the importance of a decent mic. Half of my interaction in VR is talking to people, and on a premium headset, this microphone quality is unacceptable. Here's the Quest 2 testing the microphone quality on the Oculus Quest 2 versus Index testing the microphone quality on the Valve Index versus Vive Pro 2. Testing the microphone quality on the HTC Vive Pro 2. It speaks for itself. Not to mention, the placement is terrible. Everyone hears every plosive, every breath. If you want decent microphone quality, you're gonna have to use an entirely different mic. Now my direct issues. Heat. The Vive Pro was fine with its displays. The Pro 2 has different displays, but the same cooling. Or at least it appears. And that means it not only gets hot, but it's nearly a furnace after playing with it for a few hours, almost making me uncomfortable to think about it. The cooling solutions for this headset just don't seem adequate, and the headset auto-adjusts the brightness of the display seemingly proportional to the heat output, meaning if it's hot, you just can't have a bright display. No eye tracking. This is a big one. HTC, you've already released a Vive Pro eye with Tobii eye tracking. Why doesn't your new flagship PCVR headset with cutting-edge resolution have the same technology you've already implemented before? You're pushing for face trackers and new full body trackers and all of these awesome things, and this headset is just missing a component that would have made it a no-brainer. I would put up with the heat. I would use an alternate mic. I would change the facial interface to actually use the FOV if you had eye tracking. But you don't. This headset is stuck between cutting-edge future PCVR and 2018. The resolution may tell you differently, but it simply makes no sense to not include a premium feature in 2021 on a premium headset. To many people, you're probably thinking, I don't even use eye tracking, but to me, the same person that would actually buy a Pro 2 and spend this much money would also buy HTC's face tracker that fits right in, and also buy Vive trackers and push every piece of that hardware to its limit. Not including eye tracking means it's on the same tier of headset capability as the Index and Original Pro and Pimax. And frankly, the Pro 2 doesn't do anything good enough to warrant its price versus its competition. Its resolution doesn't grant enough of a benefit over the Pro Eye or Index to really upgrade. The refresh rate at this point is pretty industry standard, the audio is fine, but just doesn't hold a candlestick to dedicated headphones or the Index audio, and the microphone is downright terrible. The FOV is no better than the Index, and it's a far cry from the Pimax, especially if you use the stock foam, and the price is hefty at $800 USD for the headset alone and $1,400 for the full kit, meaning it's also more expensive than everybody. This is not how I wanted this review to go. I wish this was my next headset. I wish I could tell people to stop buying Indexes, and if you have the money, upgrade from a Quest 2 or Rift or Vive, but I just can't. It's a functional headset. It will work, and maybe I'm asking for too much. But if you're going to charge more than anyone in the industry, I'm going to expect more than anyone in the industry. So who is this for? Honestly, it's for people that can't buy an Index or don't want to buy an Index, or it's for enterprise applications that already work closely with HTC, and it's for people that value resolution over everything, which is a thing, of course, and maybe this is for you then. And maybe it's also for people that want to stay as close as they can to SteamVR compatibility as possible while also being wireless, as I did say the wireless adapter works with the Pro 2, albeit at a lower resolution, but it does still work. I'll also mention that you're gonna need a really beefy computer to run this at its native resolution. Honestly, running this thing at full res and streaming the game on Twitch in 720p led to some really crazy bad performance issues, and that's with the 3090 and a Ryzen 5950X. In a lot of ways, I'd take a lower native resolution for more consistent performance. So, the Vive Pro 2. This headset had and still has a ton of potential. I know a lot of things are currently being worked on, like a possible microphone software update and better firmware to deal with overheating and a better wireless solution, but it's still a very expensive headset and has a lot of drawbacks compared to its competition when you factor in the price. It's not the definitive next-gen best enthusiast headset ever made, and I don't think it'll ever be that. Yeah, it looks pretty when you change out the interface to this little tiny pad and look at things in 2448 by 2448 per eye, but between the mic, price, audio, comfort, software, it just falls short of being that true Index replacement. Doesn't mean that this is bad, just means it's not as good as I'd hoped for. And I'm sure if you do get one, you'll be happy as long as you do value that resolution and base station tracking over everything. But at least for me, it doesn't tick enough boxes to make a definitive switch from the headsets I already have. I will be streaming with the Vive Pro 2 on my Twitch. If you want to hear and see things firsthand, just give it a follow. And if you have any other questions about the Pro 2, leave them below and I'll try to answer as many as possible. Thank you to my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas that you see here. I couldn't do any of this without you. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.